We'll get started at the Finance Committee meeting. Motion to approve previous minutes. Mr. Miller, second by Mr. Clay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, thank you. We're going to table 1 through 5. We'll take number 10 out of order. Approving the collective bargaining agreement with CSEA 801 Sheriff's Non-Security Unit, amending the 2017 county budget. This was voted on by their membership and negotiated by the sheriff and the county executive. Are there any questions? Mr. Kraus?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, can you just give us like a 30-second overview?
This contract's a 5-year agreement from January 1 of 17 to the end of 2021. It includes 2% raises for each of those years. There's some bumps in longevity. They've got an increase in uniform allowance, and there are some prescription changes that are increasing from $0 to $5 beginning in 2020. Vacation can now be taken in 1-hour increments. Previously, it was 4 or 2. And that pretty much sums it up.
So we won't be revisiting the contract until 2021?
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Are there any questions? Motion moved by Mr. Miller, second. Yeah,
I have
Mr.
some
Graham?
questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The salary increases is 2%. We might refer to as cost of living. Then there's also longevity. That's another pay raise. So we're really talking about 2 pay raises, right?
Technically, yes. It's an increase in the salary, yes.
Now, we talked earlier, I don't know if you have it off the top of your head, but I'd be curious, not just for your department, because there's longevity pay in other departments too, Sheriff, but what the percentage increase is for longevity pay. Because, that really should be added to what oftentimes the media reports is 2% pay raise is really not a 2% pay raise. The overall pay raise is higher than that, given that all the...
Well, not everybody gets longevity.
I know, but here anyone who's 5 years or more.
But everybody gets 2%.
Longevity
Yeah.
is a lump sum.
Yeah, but it's also,
It's not a percentage.
that lump sum is a percentage of what they're making.
No, I understand. You want to
Yeah.
get a more clearer picture of what the actual
Yeah.
increase for that employee's
Yeah,
going to
we
be.
have all these employees now, how much salary
Yeah,
increase
some
are
may
we
be
getting?
2%, but with the longevity, maybe 4.
Yeah, and a lot of, because I know, I've been in private sector, I never got a longevity increase. So, I think it's very important the public understand that there's 2 pay raises
No,
It
involved.
really would be almost employee-specific, sir, because
Yeah.
the bargaining unit encompasses a lot of different classifications for job titles. So I could have somebody in there at 50,000, gets the 2%, which is basically $1,000 or $500, right? But then they won't get any of the longevity till 5 years into that, when they'll get the 400.
Yeah.
But somebody with $38,000 could be here 25 years plus and get $2,000 plus the 2%. So it really will vary on every single employee, could be a little bit different. But in essence, yes, it's going in towards the total salary for the end of the year.
And Sheriff, the actual number would be the number of employees and then the number of money spent on salary increases and divided by the employees. That's really the true percentage increase, even though they vary, of course, from employee to employee, because not everyone gets that. But there certainly should be a number, not only for the Sheriff's Department, for every agency, and I'd like to know what that number is, what the actual salary increase is, because it isn't 2%.
You won't know until...
Thank you, Thank you. Motion by Mr. Miller, second by Mr. Clay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, Sheriff.
Have a good night, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Sheriff.
Number 6
It's a long one.
is the local law creating the limit exemption in town of Bethlehem on the conservation easements. Mr. Reinhardt is here. Thank you for being here tonight. Are there any questions for Mr. Reinhardt? No questions, Mr. Signorachi?
Yes, I was going back and forth with you on an email, and I didn't have a chance to follow up with our staff, but individuals that have, if I remember the response correctly, my first question I asked was about are there minimum qualifications, and you indicated that you needed to have 5 acres to want to participate. Then subsequent question, then your answer was that you can have adjacent property owners that may not have the 5 acres, and you can wind up adding, if I have 2 and 12 has 3, we can add those adjacent properties together and be eligible for the tax break. That's correct?
Yeah, as long as you have a 5-acre minimum.
So then you could have 3 people that could possibly pool their properties together, or 4 or 5.
I don't know that that's the case. I think Can you address that? I think it's just 2.
It's not limited to a number, but you could have 3 property owners, but just remember, the Conservation Easement Review Board has to review these applications. So if the
And
board feels as though, there's no benefit of the open space being presented, they would not.
And that leads me to my other question is, if the legislature passes this, there is no oversight that the legislature has because it'll all be handled on the town level.
Right. Right. Anyone else? Mr. Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Reiner. Thank you for shepherding this and also for the information you provided us. I thought it was quite instructive. I did go through the entire survey carefully. I do have some questions. There wasn't a specific question about this exemption on the survey. That's because I really want the survey's 13 years old, but it was very exhaustive. By the way, there's 700 completed questionnaires. That's pretty substantial for a town Bethlehem size. So there's no doubt that's a good reflection of what the town was thinking at the time. But there were people, 87% said they wanted to regulate development, but over 90% also said they wanted to lower their property taxes. So there wasn't a specific question that said, would you be willing to give up to 90% tax break to someone else in order to create open space? That's the question I wanted to pose to the Bethlehem populace.
Well, I guess the way I would answer that is, I don't know that the state law had even been passed at the time that the survey was done. So the survey should be viewed as a reflection of willingness to pay in the specific question that was included in the materials, willing to pay $25 to $50 to help preserve open space in town. And I want to remind everybody that the most significant impact that the town has projected here would only be $1. So the question was really, would you be willing to pay far more than what this specific policy would implement? And the majority said yes. So we
I thought
think
that the majority said 49.1%. I think that was question 13. I don't have the survey.
That's question 16.
There's question 16.
Lower tax assessments on open land so property owners can afford to keep private undevelopment, 49.7.
49, it was less than 50%.
Yeah, and the subsequent question was, for which of these following items would you be willing to pay an increase in town taxes from 25 to 50 of 100,000 assessed value? And that was 51.2% conservation of open land. So we're really talking about half. So my question is, well, what about the other half? So I don't think there's a strong consensus for paying more money.
And then if you read down in the subsequent question where they do have, other people have other alternatives on how to wind up going, which,
The top one was 67% get federal or state money to pay for it. So people are for open space in Bethlehem, but they're not necessarily for them paying for it. That was the conclusion I drew from this survey.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, a couple questions. One, if I
Are you done,
remember
Mr.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
correctly from previously, if somebody wants to withdraw from the exemption before the 15 years, like Mr. Sigarachi asked, they do have to pay back the taxes, but there's also a penalty, and it has to be approved by the town board, is that correct?
I think that is correct. There is a penalty, and that I think is also part of the state law that set this up.
Correct, there's a penalty established in the state law, the town did not create the penalty, the penalty is in the state law, and the town has to.
Sir, could you identify yourself?
Sure, I'm sorry, I'm Rob Leslie, I'm Director of Planning for the town of Bethlehem, I was involved in the development of the program for the town.
I'm sorry, he was here before, but,
Yeah, I
that's what he-
appreciate it. I'm gonna, normally I limit questions to department heads and members, but we'll make an exception tonight because there's some
Thank you.
technical questions that are here.
So I just want to make sure I understand, so they have to come back to town board, so it's not just that you pay the money, if the town board says, no, we aren't going to withdraw your exemption, then you're stuck with it, wherever, you cannot sell that land or develop it or whatever you want to do with it. Is that correct?
The conservation easement it's a legal document, and the owner has to sign the easement, execute the easement with the town, it gets filed in the Albany County Clerk's office and runs with the land. And so we've had discussions with applicants who have come to us recently, describing the process. They ask questions about the penalties and what the issues are, and we advise them that it is for a limited term, and your ability to get out of the easement has to go through the town board approval.
One other question. You said that it's under $1. Now, that under the dollar, is that just the town tax, or does that include school taxes, if those are included, and also the county taxes? When you say it's only going to cost the other residents $1 a year?
I believe that's both the county and the school.
Okay, so 100, can we get that calculation? Is it possible to get that?
We can, yeah.
Okay.
And how many properties do you have in Bethlehem that are 5 acres or more?
Eligible. Our totals show about 220 properties that would be eligible.
Well, more than 5.
For the
Or
contract.
what some would say. Mr. Kraus?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reinhardt?
That's total eligible, that's not necessarily how many
Well,
would.
that's eligible at
No,
5
we
5
understand.
acres, but you could wind up having other parcels, which I'd like to kind of get a breakdown of those parcels. I don't know if I'm ready to move forward with this this evening, because the one thing that kind of throws it in is that if you're able to partner with your next door neighbor to get the tax break, that kind of,
It's hard to tell, yeah.
We don't actually expect a lot of that to happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure, if you're asking for that information, I mean, that's kind of a puzzle, figuring out who could join. We know who's 5 acres or more, who's currently vacant and who's not developed. That information is easily attainable. Figuring out who's going to join with their neighbor is.
Mr. Reinhardt, 2 questions for you. If the property owner dies, is the estate then bound by that conservation easement?
Yes.
It's a legal document.
It's legal, right.
Legally.
They're married.
So that property may not be sold, or can it be sold and the easement travels with the sale?
Property can be sold and the easement travels with the sale.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No different than an access easement that's one property owner
Right.
gives to another.
I didn't know if you made any sort of exception for that particular situation.
So also, 15 years is the term of the agreement.
Lowest.
So if I'm a large land.
That's the low end. It
The
can
lower.
be for.
So if I'm a large landowner in the town of Bethlehem, I can't pay my taxes, so everyone in the town is gonna help pay the taxes on this large piece of land for 15 years.
No, it's not, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's 50%, so for a 15-year term, it's a 50% reduction in the assessed value.
Okay,
So the owner-
so it's not 100%.
It's not 100%.
No,
Goes to
no,
90.
It's never 100%.
it's
Okay,
90%.
90%.
The maximum is 90, but that would only be if you did it for perperpetuity. The 50% is for 15 years.
Perpetuity.
okay,
you
So
can
that
have
means
10%
forever.
I understand what
Because
that
Yes, that's what perpetuity means.
I know I'm not the host, but I understand. The nuns at McCluskey taught me well.
Glad we got
Are there any other questions?
So you get to pay 10% of the taxes on it.
Forever.
Use it for anything. Forever.
It's a long time.
That it is.
So I guess I would want to make the
How do you
point
wanna
that you're
move
not
this out
ever going to
without
totally
recommendation?
eliminate taxes here.
Get it to the floor, let's vote on that. All right, so motion to move it out without recommendation.
I'll move it.
Mr. Clay, second by Mr. Grimm, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Miller and Mr. Signorachi. Thank you. Number 7, authorizing conveyance of land to the Albany County Land Bank. Any questions? Motion to move it. Mr. Miller? Second by Mr. Clay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Number 8,
That's bad.
current business.
It's not even.
Mr. Signorachi?
Sorry, sir.
Authorize the submission of a grant application for the Homeland Security on emergency preparedness. It's a $400,000 grant, 100% state money with no match. Can't beat it. Mr. Kraus.
I move it.
Motion to move it.
Second.
Second by Mr. Signorachi, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, thank you. Number 9, authorize an agreement with Boysville Central School District so the kids can play baseball. They gotta give them $150 so the kids in Boysville can use the school baseball fields. You think the school district would let them play it for free? She's had her 3rd kids, but you know what, we'll give them $150. Motion,
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that. Are we charging these kids for this program?
No.
So we're taking a county program, coming right in their backyard and giving these kids a free program, and they're
Yes.
charging us for the field?
Yes, we tried to find a free field out in the Voorheesville area, and we were unable to, so the high school offered the field, but they have a charge of $150 for maintenance fees and that sort of thing. Insurance rider, I'm
It's
sure.
in their charge, it's in their charge.
Well, it's in their charge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we typically pay for fields when we run programs?
We have not up until this point.
but we haven't had any programs.
We avoid it when possible.
This is all new.
We've been very good at avoiding it.
I think the issue here, Mr. Karim, is that the Voorheesville School District could probably make money off that field if they just gave it to, if they didn't give it to us, they could make money for the district. So they're charging us what I would consider almost a nominal fee for a month's use of the field.
I mean, just a point, we tried to get another field in the town of New Scotland on Swift Road, which is right around the corner from Voorheesville, and they insisted on a fee of $400. So we then moved to the high
Whose
school.
field was that?
Huh?
Whose field was that?
The town of New Scotland.
Town of Scotland.
Yes.
Nice.
Insurance is a bunch.
Mr. Kraus.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Do we run the risk here of other schools saying, wait a minute, we're giving this away, and now Voorheesville is charging the county, and they're paying it? I mean, why wouldn't I want to do that in another school district? And by the way, who represents Voorheesville on the county legislature?
Daryl Donovan.
Daryl. Okay, he's not here. But is that,
I think Bill was just part of it.
is that a situation we could be looking at? I mean, what if somebody who has a ball field in the city wants to?
We typically look for fields that don't charge anything.
No, and I applaud that. That's great.
Yeah, and this is certainly not going to be advertised that we're paying $150 for a field.
But word gets around, you know. to the-
Yeah.
Well, it's being advertised right now.
Yeah.
Well, I just hope we're not setting a precedent here, because if we say yes to Voorheesville, then do we say yes to Bethlehem? Do we say yes to Colony? Do we say yes to Del?
Well,
Do we or
what
don't
we
we?
have to do is a better job negotiating these fields. Right now, we don't want to leave the 40 to 50 kids
Exactly,
out on left field not playing baseball.
exactly.
That's where
So,
they're big on left
you know, and I'll be out in left field. You guys didn't get that, but that's okay. So why don't we go ahead and move the $150 tonight, but let's get the commissioner in and let him try to see what we can do with negotiating with these towns. How's that?
That sounds good.
Motion by Mr. Sikarachi, second Mr. Clay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Send
Thank
them to
you.
Bethlehem, we'll have all of the land.
Yeah, they can put the fields on there.
Yeah.
Where'd it go?
Number 11 is authorized conveyance of property in the town of Colony, budding property owner.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Kraus, second by Mr. Garachi, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Number 12 is authorizing a piece of property in town of Colony, budding property owner, Mr. Sikarachi, second by Mr. Kraus, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 13 is authorizing a piece of property, budding property in town of Colony. Motion by Mr. Kraus, second by Mr. Sikarachi, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, thank you. Number 14 is a budding property owner in the town of Colony. Another piece of property, Mr. Sigarachi, second by Mr. Kraus, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Cases
Unanimous?
going to the school district, I think.
Oh, maybe we can cut a deal with the
Paying us for
Colony.
it. They're paying us for it.
Number 15 is authorizing cash leasing of a chargeback on a piece of property that doesn't exist in the town of Colony. Mr. Kraus, second by Mr. Sigarachi, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, thank you. 16 is requesting the state of New York to release the maintenance jurisdiction over the land on Route 85 in the town of Westerlo. Motion by Mr. Sigarachi, second, Mr. Clay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, thank you. Number 17, authorizing advance of highway right-of-way on Route 85 in the town of Westerlo. Motion by Sigarachi, second, Mr. Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Authorizing conveyance of land in the town of Knox, next door neighbor. Mr. Sigarachi, second by Mr. Clay, all in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Number 19, authorizing distribution of mortgage recording tax for 2017. Motion to move by Mr. Sigarachi, second by Mr. Clay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Number 20 is the public hearing on the Albany County Capital Plan. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Is this,
On a public hearing, Paul?
Well,
We'll talk about it next month.
Okay.
Motion by Mr. Miller, second by Mr. Kraus. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Aye.
it's a dude
Number
fest.
20, authorize the public hearing on the 1% tax. Any questions? The date is
25th of July,
July 25th,
the Tuesday,
Tuesday.
same as all.
Same as always, not a half an hour earlier.
Same bat channel, same bat time.
Question.
Some
sir.
things never
Mr. Kraus.
On number 21, correct?
Yes, sir, 21.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given that the legislature has not extended the sales taxes for any of the counties, we fall into this situation.
Yes, we
correct?
do.
We would have to do this regardless, sooner or later.
Right.
But we're doing it before it has passed at the state level.
We have until November, so we got a lot of
Right,
time on
we have-
this.
we have time.
I think they're gonna vote on this tonight anyway.
Well, they've been standing at ease for 4.5 hours, so we'll see what
Well,
happens.
you know, we're tied to the New York City school.
No, I think we should do this now, but I just wanted,
Well, we're just voting on a public hearing now, so we got time to act.
right.
We want to do the public hearing, so if
So
they
we're ready
pass
to
it
go.
very late, we can still.
We can still move.
We can still have a meeting and
Absolutely.
pass
I'm in
the
favor
sales
of it.
tax extension.
I move it.
Mr. Kraus, motion by, second by Mr. Signorachi, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Public hearing on the proposed wireless surcharge. These would be for TAC phones and portable phones. Motion on the public hearing, Mr. Clay, second by Mr. Signorachi, all in favor?
Have to wait till next
Aye.
month. Ask questions on this too, Gary?
Oh, thank you. It's in your backup anyway. Oh, we got one more. No, we got one more. Don't go nowhere.
What's that?
We have a 23 in addition for a piece of property
23?
in a,
This is a,
Cohoes.
City of Cohoes, this is
Cohoes.
a, this is a piece of property.
Oh, see that, Cohoes. Wait a minute, Cohoes, hold on.
We better take a real close look at this.
The welding.
This is a piece of property in the city of Cohoes that was formerly a garage and an auto body shop. It currently is very delinquent in taxes. There are 3, shall we say, less than ideal garages sitting on that property. At one time, there were 4. We've already paid to demolish 1. We could be incurring significant money and expense if we continue to leave this property the way it is. At this point, the proposal is to sell it to someone for $10,000, get it back on the tax rolls, and the person who's going to rehabilitate it, the mayor of Cohoes and the Cohoes City Council, to my knowledge. I spoke to the mayor, and he is in favor of this, getting this thing back on the tax rolls and getting it productive as an economically viable piece of property.
Any questions?
Yeah, are there any environmental issues with it? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brown?
I'm not going to comment on that, but I will say it was a former auto body shop.
So it's a brownfield.
Does that answer your question?
So the first torch is lit for welding, it's gonna go poof.
Motion to move by Mr. Clay, second by Mrs. Signorachi, all in favor? You
Aye.
can't vote on that.
He has to.
I forgot about that. All right, second by Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Miller. All in favor? Opposed? You abstaining, Mr. Signorachi?
I understand, yes.
Thank you. Motion adjourned. Mr. Clay, Mr. Miller.
Poodles.